Good morning. I am Carla West, Director of Communications for the Davidson County Sheriff's Office, and thank you all for coming here this morning. I'm going to introduce Sheriff Daron Hall. He's going to make some brief opening statements, and then he'll be available for questions.
Well, good morning. This morning, I sent a letter to U.S. Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, John Morton, to notify him that the Davidson County Sheriff's Office will not renew the 287G Delegation of Authority program when our agreement expires October the 8th. It was 6 years ago, August the 15th, that I wrote a letter requesting to participate in the 287G program upon realizing that the federal government was only screening foreign-born arrestees charged with aggravated felonies. Leading up to that 5 years, the percentage of foreign-born individuals arrested nearly doubled in Nashville. Not only have we reversed that trend, but levels of foreign-born arrests have dipped to the lowest point in 10 years. More than 10,000 illegal aliens have been processed for removal, which has led to an 80% decline in the percentage of illegal aliens arrested in Davidson County. The numbers processed have decreased so dramatically that our workload of our 287G deputies has also significantly been decreased. Make no mistake, 287G has been an overwhelming success and is described throughout the country as a model. But I want you to know that we said from the beginning that we would not continue to do the program if it was not having a significant impact in our community, and that we would move on. Well, that day has come. The staff of 12 currently dedicated to immigration enforcement can be more effectively used elsewhere within our agency. In 2007, when we started participation in the 287G program, the federal government did not respond to our county's needs as far as removing criminal aliens from our community. I would not feel comfortable discontinuing the program if there was not a system in place that would continue to screen known illegal aliens booked into our jail, and today there is such. Secure Communities, an Obama administration initiative, is implemented in Davidson County and integrated with our booking system. It prioritizes to identify and remove criminal aliens and others who pose a potential threat to our public safety. When someone is fingerprinted during the booking process, this system automatically checks the arrestee's immigration status. It requires no additional staff for the Sheriff's Office and will make for a smooth transition. One more thing I want to address before taking questions. I know there are critics who will say that the challenges and controversies of this program led to this decision. I will repeat what I said earlier. I have always said that if the program was not making a significant impact in our community, that we would move on. We have monitored it since the beginning of our participation, and I even said in my June budget hearing that we would make a decision about the program's future prior to the renewal of the MOA. Originally, we had planned to make this announcement in a couple of weeks, but given the legal department's recent filing of a charter amendment, I did not want the 287G's future to distract from this process as the council and the public consider this amendment. I'll be happy to take your questions.
Does Secure Communities really do the same thing? I mean, they screen everybody who is physically arrested in Davidson County?
It actually screens everyone. To be honest with you, the difference is that if you're not already in the immigration system with your fingerprints, it will not identify you. There's no way for it to know, but if you're already in the system, it screens every arrestee, and by the way, that's throughout the country. The Obama administration rolled that out, and every jurisdiction in America will be online by, I believe, by March.
So that sounds like it's going to catch fewer people, a lot fewer.
It will be fewer than the 287G, but far greater than we had 6 years ago. We had no alternative.
Is that a concern?
I think we handed out some graphs. I think you'll notice how low our numbers have gone. We believe that level of the percentage and the addition of the secure communities give us comfort that our community is safe.
Sheriff, how does this impact, I mean, what, this proposal of the charter, this amendment, could give you all a little more power as far as it clears up what powers you have over in the CJC, right? Just talk about that a little bit, talk about that amendment and how important that is.
Yeah, the Sheriff's Office totally supports what the legal department has proposed. Actually, what it does is clear up issues that we're already doing, and we've been doing for many years in the Sheriff's Office. The concern I had, and the reason that we moved this announcement up, was because I did not want the future of 287G and the potential for 287G to distract from that conversation in the City Council and the public. Actually, you're talking about the booking room, you're talking about functions that we've been performing all over the city for many years, and we believe we're in sound footing today to do that. But I agree that the charter actually will clear all of that up for the long term. And it's not really for additional powers as far as I can tell. I mean, it's really to secure what we presently do. So if you take 287G off the list of things we do, I hope the controversy around that will go away. And then the logic is that we save the city about $4 million a year doing functions for the police department. I think that's the best way for the city to operate. So I hope that conversation can move forward without this distraction.
So just to clarify, I want to make sure I get it right. The difference between 287G and secure communities is just that they'll be fingerprinted, but there won't be that process to try and ascertain if they're not in the system as being here illegally. There will not be that process anymore to try to ascertain if they are indeed an undocumented.
Exactly right. You know, and just to kind of put it in perspective, the high-profile cases that we're familiar with here in this community would have been caught by secure communities. Reyes Garcia, that led us down this path, had his fingerprints in the system, and would have been addressed through a secure communities program. The risk is that if you are in the country illegally and do not have your fingerprints in the system and you commit a crime, it has no way to know that you're illegally here. And so that person could be released back into the community. Had our numbers not done what they're doing today and we not have secure communities as the alternative, I don't think we would be prepared to end the program. But both of those things together, I believe, keep us comfortable.
So would this have prevented the Villegas situation from happening if under secure communities as opposed to 287?
Yes, she was deported previously, so her fingerprints were in the system. She would have been identified immediately.
Sure. There have been lawsuits, and there have been press conferences and marches and lots of people talking passionately about how this has broken up families. I know you said that hasn't impacted your decision, but were you moved in any way by what you'd heard from some of these folks who've been impacted by 287G?
You know, to be honest with you, I probably would have admitted that I have underestimated the sensation of this subject. You know, you have to go back where we were, and again, there was a series of crimes, not just Reyes Garcia, committed by people who had not only in the country illegally, but we had in our jail, and have released them only to see them commit further, more serious crimes. So our issue was that if the federal government had addressed that themselves, we wouldn't have had to do it. But 287G was an offering that Congress put forth in 1996. And so it seemed to me the responsible thing to do versus continuing just to blame the federal government. You have to understand the community was blaming me for letting people go that were illegally in the country, and why didn't you know that? So probably the sensation of the subject has been a big surprise. I've been a part of many forums and conversations and meetings, and I'll say this on both sides. I have yet to be in one where the facts were clear from both ends. It's been a very distorted conversation on both sides, and that makes it very difficult, I think, for people in the community to really understand what's going on. So, you know, looking back, you know, this is a line of work I'm in. I enjoy this line of work, but I compare it to like when I left college to study this industry. Mentally ill wasn't a subject you dealt with. You didn't think about that. But we run the largest mental health hospital in the city in our jails now. And so immigration is a subject you never thought of when you got in the line of work, but if it's not going to be addressed via the federal government, and I surely hope going forward the Congress and the President, whoever all of those people are, get their hands around this subject. It needs to be addressed.
So what happens to the 12 people who are dedicated to this right now?
Met with them last night. It was the first group that we talked to. They have worked extremely hard and done a fantastic job. The contract with the federal government required us to leave them in their place for 2 years, and it's extended till 5. We will, through our attrition over the next couple of months, we will continue to operate as we have until October, and we have guaranteed them some slots in the agency as they open up, and we'll work our hardest to ensure that that happens.
You'll have to help me remember, Sheriff. I remember the state and a couple other counties also implemented 287G after you did. Do you know if they're still operating, or were you the last in the state?
You know what? I'm not real clear about Knoxville, Tennessee. They had applied, and I haven't followed it a whole lot lately, and has been I know in the pipeline, if you will, to get up and running. I think the state, which runs a task force model, totally unrelated to the way we do it, I believe it expired itself. Now don't hold me to that. I just don't hear anything about that around here anymore. I think that was under Governor Bredesen, and I'm not sure it continued under the new governor.
So as far as you know, you were basically the only one operating 287G here in Tennessee.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this goes way back for 5 years ago. I know back then virtually every county I'm familiar with applied. It was very complicated to get approved. I say everyone I'm familiar with. The close contiguous counties I'm sure had applied, and others that reached out. But it's a very complicated system to get approval. It's one of the things I think that they have improved dramatically at the federal level as to how they're going to roll this out. We were the 4th, and I think today there are 70-something in the country doing 287G. And again, the Obama administration, when they implemented secure communities or funded it and rolled it out about 2 years ago, I think the idea was always for the country to weigh out secure communities versus 287G. It's very fair to point out that secure communities is going to identify millions of people that weren't being identified previously. Every jail in America is mandated to have every arrestee checked. And so now the information is going to be public as to who is booked in the system and who is illegally in the country if they're in the system. The question is going to be, what are you going to do about it? Before, you could argue you didn't know that information.
Have you had, this is really another version of the same question, but we're trying to get at some insight into you now that you maybe can speak a little more freely on this topic. Have you found this program harder to defend over the years?
I don't think harder. I've been a little disappointed in people's interest in the facts. The facts about the program versus the sensation of the program is very difficult to get out as to how it really works. Most people in this community probably are confused that we don't arrest people. And so we're not out making the arrest, but we're often considered or criticized for profiling. Well, the reality is we have processed everyone who comes in the jail. And by the way, that's what Secure Communities does right now. It processes everyone who comes in. And so if you're not making the arrest and you're processing everyone who comes in, I don't really understand how the program is per se profiled. But
you all did have trouble, though. If I recall how it was originally characterized, it was for violent criminals, and it was tough to draw that line, you found. Am I wrong?
Well, yeah, the part that you're wrong about is we have said from the very beginning, right here in this room, that we were going to screen every arrestee, by the way, just like Secure Communities does. And so what we've never had control over the entire time is who is processed. We screen everyone. Who is processed is always going to be a federal government's decision. And so we never argued. Keep in mind, if we had said we only wanted to target aggravated felonies, that was already happening. We argued that was way too late to only process people, screen people who had committed murders and rapes. And so the idea of it was screen everyone, let the federal government decide what the priority for removal is. And that's really the way it works today.
Okay, so the charter amendment, and maybe I'm wrong, but I thought the whole point of the charter amendment was to clarify your duties, to give you more, to clear up the authority that you guys have to do this program. So if the program's not happening anymore, is the charter amendment necessary?
That's why we're here today instead of 2 or 3 weeks from now. I started reading and hearing people talk about that this charter amendment, which I think is a really good idea, had something to do with letting us keep doing 287G. As far as I'm concerned, knowing that we weren't going to go forward 287G, we need to clearly get that out of the way. That is, as far as I'm concerned, it has nothing to do with the charter amendment. And I think personally that the city needs to know this is not going to be around, so we can decide and debate whether the charter amendment's a good idea or not. I think it's a good idea. But I heard what you're talking about, that people were saying, that this was all about allowing us to continue to do it when we knew then that we were going to make an announcement soon about not continuing it. So hopefully that clears, we're trying to clear that up.
Sheriff, how does secure communities differ from what you were doing before 287G when you were sending fingerprints to this law enforcement support center and they were supposedly processing them for immigration, right?
Yeah, here's one difference. Back then, it was the aggravated felony charge that got the attention of the law enforcement center in Vermont. Now, your immigration history is really what's going to get the attention of those folks. You could have driving without a license, but if you've been removed from this country before, you're automatically going to be turned over, or the way I understand it, you're going to be automatically turned over. So for all of the folks who've been concerned about the level of charges, the seriousness of charges, Secure Communities really doesn't weigh that out. What it does is look at your immigration history and then notify the federal government that you're going to, that you're here, and then they have to decide what to do about it. But yeah, before it was really, Travis, it was really more about the charge criminally that drove the attention of the federal government the way that we saw it. And now it seems to be more focusing on your immigration contact.
Is this announcement related in any way to the lawsuit against your office in the Tennessee Supreme Court? In terms of maybe getting out ahead of whatever they might decide?
I don't think it has any, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think it has any effect on what they can or will do, clearly. I mean, they're going to still rule on that. What's really driving this is we have to either be in here arguing to continue doing it or not. If you look at the data that we handed out, we can't justify to continue to do it at the level we've been doing it, and you have an alternative called Secure Communities. So I think it's irresponsible to be up here saying we need to keep doing it just so the courts don't rule against us. That would be irresponsible. So we're actually looking at it going, look, the renewal is here regardless of all the other things going on. The only thing I wanted to make sure we got in front of was I do believe the charter amendment's important for the future of other issues that we've been doing for a long time. And this is such a sensational subject, I didn't want 287G's future to cloud for the city council and the public. And so we've moved that up for that. But we have no idea when the Supreme Court's case will be, decided. But I think it would be wrong for us to continue to do the program just because we didn't want to affect that case.
Sheriff, can you clarify? I know they said 10,000 folks have been processed for removal. Do you know how many of those were removed, or is that all 10,000?
We can get you that number. That's, again, process for removal is a term that actually, once we've done our work, we turn it over to the federal government, and they're in various stages, but we can actually get that number for you. Okay. That's available. Is there any more?
So this is not, I kind of want to hear your response. I mean, if somebody hears and says, oh, the sheriff is giving up on this program, or, he's sort of saying, sorry for taking you down this road, it wasn't as effective as I thought. I mean, what's your sort of response to that?
I actually totally disagree with that. I think had we not seen the improvement, the graphs are very, I think they demonstrate exactly what we would have expected the program to do. We saw the foreign-born arrest had doubled in the 5 years leading up to 287G. And so when you look at that, and 5 years later, that's actually flipped completely back around. We believe the program's success is the reason that we can sit here today and say that there's no need to further continue the program. And quite frankly, Secure Communities is something that no one really understood or knew how it was going to operate. We've had it here. The entire state of Tennessee is up and running on Secure Communities. I think its future was cloudy a year ago. Whether it was going to work or not from a technology standpoint, we believe it is there. It's going to be an alternative that we didn't have before. You put those two things together, I think it's a good time, and the contract renewal is the time to really address this anyway. So we believe it's been successful, it's done what we've asked it to do, and it's time to move on.
Could you elaborate on some of the issues that the charter amendment will clear up in the future that you alluded to? Because I'm really not clear on what those issues might be if it's not related to
I can give you a list. We perform, 6 or 7 different functions that have transferred to the sheriff's office over the many years that I've been around. Some precede me before I was the sheriff. The booking room was in '96. And there are several other functions like that the police department, ancillary functions of theirs, has been moved to the sheriff's office at the request of the government. We believe it's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do. But I think it's fair to say that some could disagree on whether that's clear that the charter allows those things. This would clearly put that to the voters and let the voters make that decision. I think it's the right thing to do. So if you get 287G off the list, we believe that the community can have a better conversation about where those functions are better performed. It is, we believe, a much more efficient way. $4 million difference between us doing it and the police department having to do some of those things. So
would they effectively expand the powers?
no, well, the way I see it, it clears up what we're presently doing. There are no plans for expansion of anything that I know about. And by the way, just to clear this up, every one of these things were asked of us to take on. It was not us saying, give us more to do. It was never saying, let us take that over. It was people coming to us, whether it be the chief of police or the legal department or the mayors in the past, that have said, look, why not, can we come up with a better way to perform these functions instead of having sworn police officers doing some things like serving warrants on people who are already in custody. For years, the police officers were taken off the streets, sent up into the jails to serve a warrant on someone. Well, why don't we work that out? There's a law about DNA. When a violent criminal is arrested, the law says that the arresting officer will swab the DNA to make sure that you have that on file. Why not do that once you get them to booking? Don't do it out in the field. And so those are just examples. And so we took those functions on over the years. It's the right thing to do. And I think the legal department on their own said, look, why don't we go on and put this to the referendum issue so there's no challenges and questions down the road. 287G's case at the court, I think, brought to the attention of, you know what, that's one thing, but there's other things we could clear up by getting this on the ballot. And so when I realized that 287G's future was clouding the future of that referendum, I think the best thing to do is expedite notifying everyone that we're going to discontinue this.
You may have already answered this, but how much money do you save not implementing 287G and using the other programs instead? Because you have less to do, right?
Yeah, we won't involve ourselves at all with screening and interviewing people any longer past October. It's about $700,000 that the staff cost us to operate it. But we will just reassign them throughout our vacancies and throughout the agency. So in a sense, it's savings where we don't have to fill. But I don't think there's any secret. Our budget's been cut the last 5 years too, and we're trying to manage as we can those vacancies.
As far as the decrease in illegal immigrants, I mean, can you realistically attribute that entirely to 287G? I mean, hasn't that corresponded with the decline in illegal immigration nationally and those kind of trends?
I mean, again, we're talking about arrestees, and all I can tell you is what the trends were and coming into the system and what's happened since then. I don't think you would find a community like Nashville that doesn't have 287G anywhere near that same decline. That's my anecdotal understanding of it. But I don't think I do not think with all the sensation of this case, of this situation, you know, we've been accused of spreading fear and putting fear in the community and so forth. Well, if you believe that, then you would also think that has, in some cases, reduced people's involvement in the criminal justice system, you know, deterred from crime if nothing else. But our indications from our numbers are not only is it illegal people that are being arrested for crimes, but the foreign-born arrest has also trended the same way. And so for us all along, it was important to know that people who are in this country that weren't born here, that doesn't make them wrong or criminal or anything. If they're arrested and they're illegally in the country, that's a whole different number that we're watching. And so I don't know of other systems data. We haven't talked about 287G's data, but we're very confident that this is a significant part of what's turned the number around. Okay? All right. Thank you very much.